back to 20th Century Adventures. I know it's been a little while since I've posted anything, but if you remember on my last video, I promised you that there'd be some great stuff coming up, and this is the first of that. So we are out here in Central Oregon right now, and we're going to take an auto camping tour. So we're going to go tour the Cascades. We're going to be driving some old cars, doing some vintage camping. It's going to be a lot of fun. So come along for the ride.
Central Oregon is a very beautiful place, and it's an area that people have come to for many, many decades for recreation, for hunting, for all sorts of things. It was a big destination, of course, during the Western migration, but after that it became a destination for all sorts of outdoor activities. And of course the automobile made it more possible for such things to go on. So we felt it was appropriate to host a motor camp in this area, and went out and hooked up with some folks that we know from out there in Oregon as well as in California to tour the Cascades and have a grand old time. We were joined by the Central Oregon Model T Club, and you can see some of their cars along with us. We did have a couple of situations where we had to slow down, wait for the Model Ts to catch back up. That was not uncommon even in the period if you were traveling in groups that had a Model T, because the Model Ts just couldn't keep up with the larger Big Six vehicles, six-cylinder engines. And even the Model A was faster than the Model T and could handle the hills better. And of course, there's plenty of hills out there in Central Oregon. So when you were traveling in Oregon in this period, you could take the stage, which was a bus basically that went over the mountain pass, or you could try it yourself. And sometimes that was a little rough. It didn't end so well. Some people were known to go off the trail where they weren't allowed as well. And then of course, sometimes you didn't make it and you had to get hauled back by horses. Now, of course, the roads weren't very good. This is an example of a road very similar to what you would have seen in a good road in this period. At best, the roads were macadam, which is chip and seal today, but most of them were just dirt roads, maybe a little bit of gravel. There were auto camps you could stay at. These are some pictures of some of that. Some were more advanced than others. We ran across this little place, and I'm not sure if this is an actual motor camp from the period, or if it's something someone's made up, but it sure looks a lot like early motor camps. So as we traveled, our midday stop was at a lavender farm in Oregon, and it was just an absolutely beautiful sight. We really enjoyed getting to have our lunch there on the banks of the river, and we walked through the lavender fields, and the owner let us cut some lavender. It was lovely stuff. And he also had his own collection of antique cars that he wanted to show off to us, and we were grateful for that. Off in the distance, on that far shore of the river, there was a eagle nest, and there was a lot to see going on with her. She was obviously upset by some activity that was going on. I don't think it was us, but it may have been. Now, as we progressed, the day started out real nice, and then it began to get very wet, which of course, you know, that happens. Historically, that was a part of it. You would often get caught in a rainstorm or something like that. Our driver, Linus, a good friend of mine, who you may have seen in some of our other videos, he was driving his 1921 Studebaker Big Six, and graciously let me ride in the back seat with my friend Marcus as we cruised along. Now here, one of the Model A's that was with us had a small issue with the battery not charging, and so it had to be crank started at one of our stops. And fortunately, these cars still came with a crank. A lot of cars by the late 20s didn't come with a crank anymore, but the Model A still did, and fortunately that got us back on the road. Now, for those of you who are wondering, the dog's name is Jolene. She is an amazing riding companion. She's Linus's dog. She sat in that passenger seat just as happy as could be the whole trip. Never barked. You may have seen her earlier running around with the stick. She's very playful, but she is incredibly good when she's in the car. She just sits there and enjoys the drive and keeps to herself. Is a great traveling companion for Linus. And we actually did get out on one gravel road during our trip, and it went through a just absolutely wonderful area that looked just about like I would think it would have looked back in the 20s. It was a real neat experience. Now, you may have noticed Linus operating the windshield wiper there. These cars did not have automatic windshield wipers yet. In fact, the hand windshield wiper was still a fairly new invention. So we got to put it to the use this weekend, and it did very well. So when we got there, we had to set up. The ground was wet. We hadn't set up our camp yet, so we had to do that and set up on wet ground. But it wasn't too bad. Drained really well because the soil's real sandy there. And we actually stayed real dry. It quit raining about 8 o'clock and drizzled some for a little bit after that. But it was very nice, and we stayed perfectly dry in our little lean-to tent. So this is the rest of the historic portion of the motor camp. Now, this was in a modern campground, but this would be very similar to some of the city-sponsored motor camps where someone may be able to stay possibly for free in the 20s. The towns realized that there was value in these motor campers that would come through because they were people of wealth, or at least upper middle class. They had money and they were on tour and they were on vacation. They wanted to spend some money, and so the towns realized that it was a good idea to let them stay there for free. And sometimes there'd be some basic amenities, but not a whole lot. Now, this eventually gave way to the modern hotel, or motel rather, or the motor camp alongside the road with little cabins or something. In the 1930s, the Great Depression led to a lot of people living on the road as they migrated from one part of the country to another. And so a lot of the free motor camps closed down during that period and after, just because the clientele wasn't the same.
We really appreciate you driving us around and being our chauffeur today.
Not killing you.
Not killing us.
Okay.
And the back of your car is very comfortable. We enjoyed riding in it. And so we got you, we went in halvesies at the antique store on something to thank you for driving us around, all right?
I present you a 1928 State of Oregon's chauffeur badge.
Look at that. Oh man, I am the luckiest man on the planet.
There we go. Got it.
Thanks, guys. That's great. I'm going to put it on right now.
Want one of us to pin it on you?
Oh no. Thanks. I was eyeing these things in the case.
Were you?
Ooh, I want one of those, but I didn't.
Well, you were the chauffeur today, so it really made sense.
Thank you.
So, as is always the case with these sorts of events, the time to pack up came way too soon for everybody else. So we were all sad that the weekend was over and that it was time to go home. So everyone packed up and got on the road, and we will do this again someday. The next big thing that we have planned as far as motor camps are concerned is the National Motor Camp that's going to be held in Tahoe, California in the summer of 2025. Thanks for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe. We really appreciate your comments and your support. We'll see you down the road.